Hello everyone, I'm Anuj Jaggi and I'm a legal intern with LEXIS and Company. And this is the second video on the topic fair wages. And in this video, I'll be talking about fixing minimum rates of wages. So, who fixes the minimum rates of wages, which is given in Section 5 and Section 6? And I'll also be talking about the manners or the basis of minimum wage, the components of minimum wage, etc. So the minimum wages decided by the central or the state governments must be higher than the floor wage. In case the existing minimum wages fixed by the central or the state governments are higher than the floor wage, they cannot be reduced to the minimum wages. The fixing of minimum wage is the code prohibits from paying wages, which is the code on wages. And this code prohibits the employers from paying wages less than the minimum wages. Minimum wages will be notified by the central or the state governments. This will be based on time or number of the pieces produced. The minimum wages will be revised and reviewed by the central or the state government at an interval of not more than 5 years. While fixing minimum wages, the central or the state governments may take into account factors such as skill of workers, difficulty of work, etc. So, who shall fix it, or the manner of fixing is under Section 5. No employer shall pay to an employee wage less than the minimum rate of wages notified by the appropriate government. Section 6 clause 1, subject to the provisions of Section 9, the appropriate government shall fix the minimum rate of wages payable to the employees in accordance with the provisions of Section 8 of the Code on Wages. Clause 2 of Section 6 talks about, for the purposes of subsection 1, the appropriate government shall fix the minimum rate of wages for time of work and for the piece of work. The third clause talks about where employees are employed on piece of work. For the purpose of subsection 1, the appropriate government shall fix a minimum rate of wages for securing such employees a minimum rate of wages on a time work basis. And the fourth clause of Section 6 talks about the minimum rate of wages on time work basis may be fixed in accordance with any one or more of the following wage periods, namely by the hour, by the day, or by the month. So time work is basically work paid by the length of the time taken, especially by the hour or the day. Piece work is work paid for according to the amount produced. Let's say an employee makes jewelry and they are paid 100 rupees per necklace and produce 40 necklaces during the week. The employee would earn 4,000 rupees that week. But under Section 6, for piece of work also the minimum wages is to be decided on time basis as guaranteed time rate. For example, making toys for 5 hours would equal to rupees 300 minimum wage criteria for that particular employee. Section 6 clause 6 of Code on Wages talks about, for the purpose of fixation of minimum rate of wages. Under this section, the appropriate government shall primarily take into account the skill of workers required for working under the categories of unskilled, skilled, semi-skilled, etc. May in addition also to such minimum rate of wages for certain category of workers take into account their effectiveness and efficienciness of their work, and the amount of difficulty of the work also has to be taken into account. And last, the norms of such fixation of minimum rate of wages shall be as may be prescribed. So Section 7 clause 1, which talks about any minimum rate of wages fixed or revised by the appropriate government under Section 8 may consist of a basic rate plus a cost of living allowance. And second one is basic rate of wages with or without cost of living allowance plus cash value of the concessions. And the third one is an all inclusive rate, which is allowing for the basic rate, the cost of living allowance, and the cash of value of the concessions, if any are occurred. So this was the concept of fair wage and the fixing of minimum wages or the living wage, and I hope I was able to give you guys a clear picture about it, and thank you.